Hello and welcome back to AdaPulse, the community-funded news channel keeping you up to date with all the news and emerging projects that are in and around the Cardano ecosystem. And remember, because we're community-funded, there is no coin shilling or paper motion. We're not even here to discuss token price. We're just here to break down information and deliver it to you in a way that's easy for you to understand. Like today, for example, we are discussing how does Cardano tackle the blockchain trilemma. And this is a piece by Laura, one of the new writers that have been onboarded to the AdaPulse team. But it's a really important topic. We talk about the blockchain trilemma a lot. And so we'll be focusing on decentralization, scalability, and network security. And in different networks, you get different trade-offs, so what's important to some may not be important to another. So it's a really important topic. And so if you're a complete noob, stay with me because I'm going to explain everything and break it down for you in a way that you can understand it. But before I go on, remember to click the like button, hit subscribe, and hit that bell button so you can get notified as soon as we've got content available. And share far and wide. Remember, we're trying to educate as many people as possible. So share it out, push it out. I am Josh from ATM Staple, your presenter for AdaPulse today. Let's just crack on with the article. Now, before we kick off, when you're trying to evaluate a blockchain project, you've basically got to forget the hype. Put your blinkers on, the hype doesn't exist. In fact, the likeliness is, the more hype there is, the more likely it's a VC coin and it's being pumped, especially if you look at what's been happening recently. So, what you've got to remember is all your decisions when you're assessing a project should be based on the fundamentals and metrics based. Now, the question is, what are the key metrics and fundamentals that you should be looking for when evaluating layer one projects? Now, just if you don't know, layer one projects are like Ethereum, Cardano. They all have tokens within them, but they're the first layer. So they're layer one. And this isn't easy considering, you've got a lot of different variables for potential growth, especially with the smart contract networks like Cardano and Ethereum. And so to approach this question, we've come up with what's called the blockchain trilemma. And it's used as a method of framework to evaluate a blockchain. So today we're discussing, why understanding the blockchain trilemma is important for you to understand the true value of layer one blockchains and how Cardano in particular tackles every dimension of the trilemma so you can understand it. What is the blockchain trilemma? Well, the blockchain trilemma, also sometimes known as the blockchain scalability trilemma or the blockchain scalability problem, is a concept introduced by Ethereum co-founder Vitalik Buterin, but states that a blockchain network, it's impossible to achieve all three of the following characteristics simultaneously. So what they're saying is blockchains can only be scalable and secure, but not decentralized, secure and decentralized, but not scalable, or scalable and decentralized, but not secure. Now, these three features are often seen as mutually exclusive, and it is difficult for blockchains to excel in all three at once. Now, I hope this Venn diagram helps you out. So, for example, increasing scalability, which is the number of transactions a blockchain can process, often comes at the cost of reducing decentralization, which is the number of nodes that participate in the network. So therefore, it's necessary to make trade-offs and compromise on one or more of these dimensions in order to achieve others. So that's why we've got so many different protocols around, all with different trade-offs being made depending on the priorities of their creators. So we're going to go through each of them, and we're going to start with this: decentralization. Now, decentralization is probably the key characteristic of blockchains as a whole. And it's referring to the distribution of power and control among the network's participants, like nodes and stuff like that. So there's no single point of control or failure in a decentralized network. So instead, transactions are verified by like a load of different nodes and stuff like that in the network. And basically anyone can validate transactions or maintain their ledger by running the node. In fact, in Cardano, just running Daedalus, you're running a full node and has a full copy of the blockchain. And as Charles has stated before, you can actually revive the whole of the network from that one node being the passive node in Daedalus. So decentralization is important as it ensures that a blockchain is resistant to censorship and control by a minority, essentially. And it allows for a more democratic and transparent system. So everyone within the network has an equal say in the functioning of that network. However, there is trade-off of pure decentralization is speed. As more entities secure the network through consensus, transaction speeds can drop, which is considered obviously quite a hurdle when it comes to widespread adoption and scalability. Now, Laura's put this down as the trilemma. I don't know if she made that up, but it highlights the importance of evaluating projects based on decentralization, as it's one of the most important metrics to consider when assessing the potential of a crypto project. Now, a lot of people assume blockchains are decentralized by default, but I can assure you that is not the case. You've got to think of it as more of a spectrum, and some platforms are more decentralized than others. Like, for example, if I had a platform and I had one node, someone else in another part of the world runs another node, we decentralized, but there's only two of us. So it's not that decentralized. So think of it like that. I mean, Terra Luna serves as a good example because that was considered probably the most centralized protocol out there, but crashed massively in May last year, wiping out like $400 billion off the crypto market cap. But this event illustrates the importance of decentralization in crypto projects and the importance of evaluating them based on just this metric alone. Security. Now, obviously, security is a crucial kind of characteristic within the blockchain trilemma, as it refers to the blockchain's ability to protect itself against malicious actors or hackers or whatever. Now, the security of a blockchain system is paramount as it ensures the integrity and the immutability of the blockchain's ledger. Now, the ledger is where all the transactions are stored. Now, one issue that can arise, and is often brought up, is the network's susceptibility to 51% attacks. Now, these attacks are likely to happen when consensus is achieved on an open network with limited nodal distribution. So you think of that example I gave earlier where I have one node, someone has another node. What about they now have two nodes? They actually now have more control over the network than I do. But the reason this happens is actually pretty simple. It's because decentralized technology is open source. So as the code is publicly available, literally anyone can read it and figure out ways to exploit it, hack their way in, find backdoors, loopholes, whatever. But check out this. This is a great example, was the attack on the ETC blockchain in August of 2020, which suffered 51% attacks that reorganized over 4,000 blocks. One last thing about security, though, that I want you to keep in mind is that security is an ongoing process. And so basically, different projects, they're constantly trying to find new ways and new solutions to basically strengthen their security of their network. And so what I'm trying to say is, so security is not a static process. It's constantly evolving. Scalability. Now, when we talk about scalability, all people seem to actually talk about is the amount of transactions per second a network can handle without experiencing delays or congestions. You might see it noted down as TPS, so you know. But it essentially it's defining how well the blockchain network will operate when more people start coming into using it. Now, check out this image from ResearchGate. It hasn't got Cardano on it. It has Dash and Bitcoin Cash, but it doesn't put Cardano on there. Anyway, but what blockchains offer are an immutable, decentralized, distributed peer-to-peer ledger for transactions. But as you can see, in a world of thousands of transactions a second, like with Visa, the 7 that Bitcoin do or the 20 that Ethereum do simply aren't going to cut it. So this is so basically security and scalability they're both achieving conflicting goals, because you have security, which aims to maintain stability and functionality, while scalability allows the blockchain networks to expand. So the blockchain trilemma highlights the challenge of achieving scalability, security, and decentralization simultaneously on a blockchain network. So check this out. Here's a couple of examples. So while Bitcoin is decentralized and secure, it is only able to process approximately 7 transactions per second. Enterprise blockchains like Hyperledger Fabric are secure and can handle a high number of transactions a second, but they're centralized and with a limited number of consensus achieving nodes. So achieving scalability whilst remaining secure and decentralized is a problem and there is no easy solution. Some solutions, focus on the layer one, which is like the base layer, specifically on improving like consensus algorithms, where others are developing layer two solutions or like a separate network that sort of runs alongside the layer one, where it's like Cardano has side chains, for example. So how is Cardano tackling the blockchain trilemma? So firstly, what we're going to start with is Cardano's degree of decentralization. Now, one way to assess Cardano's decentralization is by looking at these three metrics. So check it out. So you got the number of stake pools, the initial token distribution, and the number of individual staked wallets. So what do those numbers indicate? So, well, as of now, there are over 3,000 stake pools. If you check out this image, you can see the growth of that number. But this shows a high amount of network distribution. Now, to avoid unlimited expansion and centralization, like rewards for stake pools will stop increasing once the stakeholders or tokens in a pool exceed a certain threshold. And this is known as saturation point. Now, if you check out this image, you can see Cardano had a fair coin distribution right from the very beginning, with only 17% of the tokens being held by project insiders. And this really set the tone early for the decentralization of Cardano, which, if you think about it, is quite a rare feat when you look at sort of the current landscape. Now, on top of that, Cardano has over 1 million staked wallets with a staking ratio of 71%. Now, check out this image and you can, really see the growth of those wallets. And again, that's reflecting a high degree of decentralization. So overall, these metrics show that Cardano is, ranking really high. Even in comparison to other layer one blockchains, you can say that taking those metrics into consideration, Cardano is in fact the most decentralized network. So the next thing we've got to cover is Cardano's degree of security. So overall, the security of Cardano's blockchain can be evaluated by looking at the absence of flaws or any issues or the 51% attacks since its mainnet went live back in 2018. That would be Shelley launch. So for an attacker to control 51% of the Cardano network, it would cost over $9 billion. And that's not factoring in the price appreciation that would occur with a buyer trying to, purchase that much ADA. Now, generally speaking, the fact that Cardano hasn't had any sort of significant security breaches since it was launched will, along with its proof of stake consensus mechanism and formal verification process, surely suggest that it has a relatively high degree of security. Now, check out this video from Balance Analytics, and it tracks Cardano's MAV or MAV over time, which stands for minimum attack vector. So how many entities need to collude in order to gain control of that 51%? And as you can see at the end of this video, it is 20. So obviously the last thing I want to talk about is Cardano's degree of scalability. Now, there's a lot of different metrics, but all everyone really wants to talk about is transactions per second. And as I mentioned before, that's the amount of transactions that can go through without experiencing any delays or congestion. Now, if you look at that metric, Cardano isn't actually that high. We're talking 20 to 30. But what you've got to remember is we had the Vassal hard fork upgrade. And what that means is we can actually send multiple transactions within one transaction. Now, a good example is if you go to DripDrop's website and use that platform, you can actually get 10 tokens within one transaction. So you're only paying one transaction fee. It's pretty cool. Now, so for decentralization and security, Cardano's already, provides a robust technological basis. But to tackle the scalability component of the trilemma, Cardano has an 11-point agenda aiming at increasing capacity and throughput. And that's just to keep up with all the, the growth in the amount of dApps that are being created. But you've got to remember, Cardano is a relatively new blockchain. Its scalability hasn't been fully tested yet, but it is expected to increase as the network grows and more solutions are implemented. Now, the Cardano team is actively working on improving the scalability of the network, and solutions are basically still in the development phase. Blocksplained did a good article here. I'll put a description below, so that's worth checking out. And that's how Cardano plans to scale using just the layer 1 solution. So what you've got to remember there is the degree of Cardano's blockchain scalability can be, or should be considered, a work in progress. But it has a solid plan, and active development is expected to improve in the future. Conclusion. Well, to sum up, obviously the blockchain trilemma is a massive challenge that every blockchain project is facing. But it's finding that balance between security, decentralization, and scalability that is crucial for the success of any blockchain network. But Cardano is a decentralized and secure blockchain that is actively working on this scalability puzzle or problem, whichever way you want to look at it. And the goal is to create this sort of secure and scalable and obviously decentralized network. But despite the challenges, emerging solutions may solve the blockchain trilemma. But Cardano is definitely on the path to achieving this goal. But that brings us to the end of the article for today. Remember, the full article can be found on the AdaPulse website, so it's worth checking out because you've got a lot of articles there we don't actually have time to make videos for. But do remember to click the like button, hit subscribe, and hit the bell button so you get notified when we got a new video out. And obviously do share far and wide because we want to educate as many people as possible. But enough of that. I'm Josh from ATM Stakepool, your presenter for today, and I'll see you next time. Thank you.